go on to Marcus Hill.
Good evening, Council.
Hello.
Well, I've taken the time to read the emails I sent you in an attempt to keep you all up to date with the correspondence between Dr. Gene Spratt and myself. It was Dr. Spratt from the Department of Health and Human Services who, at our meeting this past September, was brought in to defend the public policy of water fluoridation. I'm here to defend the public health, regardless of any longstanding policies. I appreciate the Council's willingness to learn about the dangers of this policy, and I look forward to admiring your foresight and wisdom when you end the practice of polluting our drinking water with these hazardous toxins. I also appreciate the Council extending me the same courtesy as it extended Dr. Spratt, whose presentation exceeded time constraints. Mine will by a minute or so as well. I asked Dr. Spratt to substantiate her claim of the existence of numerous studies conducted within the U.S. to show fluoride is safe, effective, and without negative consequence. She referred me to the CDC, the American Public Health Association's policy statement, and a systematic review focused on the safety and efficacy of water fluoridation. This review is from the National Health and Research Centre of Australia, so not quite the primary research studies conducted here in the U.S. that I'd asked for, but I guess Australia do just fine. I read the 189-page document and skimmed the 353 pages of citations, and I must admit the government of Australia did a pretty thorough review. Of course, I was most interested in the potential harms listed by the review simply because I'm aware that while important, my teeth might take a backseat to other parts of my body like my brain. Briefly, here are some of the greatest harms listed by the review on pages 107 to 109, including Alzheimer's disease, impaired mental functioning, primary degenerative dementia, cognitive impairment, anemia during pregnancy, Down syndrome, infant mortality, sudden infant death syndrome, skeletal fluorosis, and mental retardation. Dr. Spratt stated that for every dollar spent fluoridating a community, $38 in dental costs was saved. I was curious to see how the figures were derived or divined and asked Dr. Spratt to provide her source. She did not mention it in her email, which I will forward to you all. But the ridiculous claim comes from the Oral Health Division of the CDC and was authored by Drs. Scott Tomar, Kerry Jones, and Susan Griffin. I read an economic evaluation of community water fluoridation, and it is clear that Griffin et al. Inflated the benefits of fluoridation and ignored the costs. Perhaps it was just forgetfulness that prompted them to ignore the most obvious dental cost for a most visible sign of fluoride poisoning, upwards of $1,000 per tooth for cosmetic veneers to hide fluorosis. Perhaps it was just enthusiasm for the future when in 2007, Griffin et al. Allowed a loss of earnings of $18 per hour of time off for a dental filling. Not everyone loses pay when they get a dental filling, and not many children earn $18 an hour. I question the wisdom of water fluoridation in light of Harvard University environmental health professor Dr. Philippe Grandjean's public statement, fluoride seems to fit in with lead, mercury, and other poisons that cause chemical brain drain. The effect of each toxicant may seem small, but the combined damage on a population scale can be serious, especially because the brain power of the next generation is crucial to us all. It doesn't seem a wise policy to create the potential for such a brain drain in a city Forbes magazine calls a brain magnet. Dr. Spratt appealed to our emotions with stories of crying babies suffering from toothaches, but I must admit my heartstrings were more readily tugged by thoughts of a toxic chemical easily passing through the blood-brain barrier and bioaccumulating there from conception through death. Maybe you can't hear the child screaming in pain as from a toothache, but maybe some of those cries can be heard in our nation's falling test scores, especially in cities coincidentally fluoridated.
Okay, 3 minutes is up. We'll give you another minute to go ahead and finish your comments and wrap up.
A couple little things left to go over. In our conversation, Dr. Spratt cited as causative the naturally occurring fluoride found in some of the locales from which more than 40 studies clearly linking fluoride exposure with reduced intelligence, neurodegenerative, and neurotoxic effects. She did not, however, acknowledge the lack of studies conducted within the United States. The National Research Council in 2006 did acknowledge that lack of research by, quote, "It's apparent that fluorides have the ability to interfere with the functions of the brain, and carefully conducted studies of exposure to fluoride and emerging health parameters of interest like brain function and endocrine effects should be performed in populations here in the U.S. These studies are beginning to be conducted, or at least reviews of existing international studies have taken place, like the review by the Australian government. It was a more recent review by researchers at Harvard University published in the 20th edition of Environmental Health Perspectives that I referenced in my last statements to the Raleigh City Council. In fact, the authors of that study determined and published the fact that, quote, "the children in high fluoride areas had significantly lower IQ than those in low fluoride areas. I must stress that it was the fluoride levels in the children's urine that was tested, not the fluoride level in their water. I am saddened by the fact that my good friend's 7-year-old son has severe dental fluorosis. It is not the opaque white spots and weakened enamel that depresses me. What I'm concerned about is the fact that CJ exhibits symptoms of fluoride poisoning that is easily seen. This young citizen of our district, Councilman Weeks, surely has symptoms of fluoride poisoning that are not easily seen. I appeal to the Council's good sense From 1990 to 1991, an 11-month moratorium was conducted in Durham, North Carolina. The water was not fluoridated for a period of 11 months. And in 2000, the University of Michigan published the findings that while incidences of cavities in children did not increase, the number of cases of dental fluorosis showed a significant drop as a result of even temporarily halting the practice of fluoridating the water. I wonder what other harmful effects of fluoride were stalled as a result. It may be too late for CJ to have healthy teeth, but maybe some of the other harmful effects of fluoride can be curtailed by ending a bad public policy that demonstrably harms public health. Thank you for the additional time.
Thank you very much.